Hey guys, welcome back into Legacy. We're going to jump back into Dragon Warriors today and talk today about character creation for Dragon Warriors and what Dragon Warriors looks like, how it plays as far as character creation goes. So we're going to start doing our deep dive on it, and hopefully by the end of this, you guys will have a better idea of what Dragon Warriors entails from a mechanical standpoint when we're done with all the videos. Just so you guys know, the plan is going to be that these are going to be split up with regular videos in between um, so that there's not just an overload of me just dragging Dragon Warriors out constantly. Um, kind of give you guys a little bit of a breather between them. Also gives me more time to prepare them and get them set up right. So that being said, so let's just dive into Dragon Warriors um, character creation, and I'm gonna bring up the character sheet so you guys can see what it looks like. That is the character sheet there. I apologize if it's a little small. I'm still learning OBS, so I apologize, guys. There's a lot of mistakes I'm gonna make. I'm not gonna sit there and pull punches with you. So, but that is a character sheet for Dragon Warriors. Let me see if I can get it to zoom in and zoom. I don't want zoom. I want view. Give me a second here, guys. There it is. Yeah, can't find it here. No, can't find it here. Ah, blast it. I cannot find it from the life of me right now. That's why. Okay, okay, there we go. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Okay, that'll help a lot. Apologize, like I said, guys. I'm still learning how to do all this, so please be patient with me. I'm a I'm a neophyte with OBS, so I'm working with it. Okay, so as you can see, the top there is pretty simple. It's got the name of the character, and then it's got the character name, profession, and then what the rank is, which is like a level in Dragon Warriors, which I'll get more into that when we talk about classes and leveling up and stuff. Okay, just jumping right into it. You have 5 statistics in this game. The statistics in this game are pretty simplistic, but they cover a lot of ground. They are rolled 3d6 down the line. Um, it is very much an OSR type feel. Like I said, this game comes from the 80s, so it's very OSR feel, very old school D&D esque, um, and it's pretty simple. General rule is if you ever roll a character that has 2 stats under 9, the character can be considered a lost cause and be re-rolled um, because it's not really viable as a character. You don't have to by any means, and the DM doesn't have to let you do it. It is encouraged to allow players to reroll those characters, though, because those characters will suffer pretty severely. Because so much of other statistics and stuff will be affected by your statistic line here. And I'll get into that in just a minute when I talk about derived statistics and all that fun stuff. Okay, so just so you guys know what it is, what each stat means. Strength is a measure of a character's fitness, physical toughness. Um, Strength also kind of folds a little bit of constitution into it in this game. Um, so that's where you're kind of getting most of that. Uh, your reflexes is dexterity, agility, speed. Reflexes is actually how you determine initiative in this game. Again, we'll get more into that when we get into the video on combat. But reflex is how you determine initiative in this game. It's very much an important stat for that line. Um, and again, it folds a lot of multiple stat games that have used multiple stats for things like dexterity and coordination. Like Hero System has different stats for that kind of stuff. It folds it all into one stat. Rather than having 3 stats, it rolls it all into one stat. Intelligence shows how clever you are. Um, Intelligence is kind of a mix in this game of intelligence and wisdom. Um, you're not only are you intelligent, it's also your ability to process information and to kind of react to things. Um, Wisdom kind of folds between intelligence and psychic talent, but there is definitely a element to it that comes from the intelligence statistic. The intelligence statistic is uh, vitally, fairly vitally important to magic users along with psychic talent. Um, your intelligence is encouraged to role play your intelligence the way that it comes off. So if you roll a averagingly intelligent character, you shouldn't try to play him like a genius um, kind of thing. There's nothing, again, nothing saying you can't do that kind of stuff. Just it really the game encourages you to play your intelligence score, which I actually encourage my players to do, and most people I've played with they tend to do that. Psychic talent uses it's your basic ability to resist in some cases use magic. So Psychic talent is really, like I said, it's a little bit like wisdom. It's a little bit of charisma base. It's kind of a weird conglomeration of statistics for other games. It really favors the magic casting classes, which there are multiple magic casting classes. There's more magic casting classes in this game than there are non-magic casting classes in this game, believe it or not. So psychic talent deals with that, and I'll get into exactly how here in a minute. Again, when we get into derived statistics, because derived statistics derive from things like psychic talent. And then looks is your physical appearance, charisma, personal charm. This is where your charisma comes in. Um, it doesn't have a necessarily mechanical effect on the game. What this generally represents, though, is how NPCs are going to view your character. If your character is very low looks, um, you will generally get less favorable reactions from characters around you. NPCs will look down on you if you're not charming. They will talk back, that kind of stuff. It's not vital, but keep in mind it does impact a lot of NPC interactions because this game, unlike D&D, a lot of modern D&D type games, does not use dice rolls to determine a lot of NPC interaction. It is really role play centric. So there you go. Okay. So that's your statistics. You've got those 5 statistics. 3d6 down the line, you're going to get between 3 and 18. You're aiming for between 9 and 12 on average. Which statistically is the average is 9. Um, Actually, I think it's closer to like 11 if I do the math right. It's but the idea being that you're going to be between 9 and 12 on average with your statistics, and that's going to be the average person. Something you did not hear me mention with this game, and I'm going to make mention of it now. There really is not plain non-human characters in this game. Everyone is assumed to be human. There are some rules in the bestiary for playing other races, but it's heavily discouraged. Other races are extremely unbalanced and would have to have extreme reasons to adventure with the human counterparts in this world. So that is a big part of this game as well. You are not going to be playing an elf or a dwarf. You're playing a human. But your region that you come from actually does make a difference. Again, there's a whole section on character creation, talks about where you're from, what languages you can speak, and all that kind of stuff. That's all determined by where you're from, which is kind of like a racial bonus. Okay. The next step that you're going to take is you're going to choose a profession. Professions. So there are 7 professions, I believe, in this game. So there's 7. Make sure my math's right. 7 professions in this game. There are 2 primary fighting classes. There's 1 rogue class, and then there are 4 magic casting classes. So your classes are knights, barbarians, assassins, sorcerers, mystics, elementalists, and warlocks. Um, they are very simplistic as far as what they are. Knights are the best all-around fighters. They're not as robust as a barbarian. They can wear heavy armor. They don't lose combat skills. A knight is the general class that they say to play when you're first walking into this game because it doesn't really need anything but the combat skills, the attack, the defense, and evasions. It doesn't worry about stealth really. It doesn't worry about it. It doesn't worry about magical attacks and all that. It is a vanilla class. Barbarians are better uh, attackers. They're not as defensive. They cannot wear heavy armor. They can go. They do eventually gain the ability to go berserk, uh, and that's kind of where they are. The difference between knight and barbarian, honestly, is the difference between Arthur and Conan. There you go. Um, Assassins, they're average in combat. Uh, they do get things like sneaking attacks and poison attacks and learning all that kind of stuff eventually. Um, they they really try to come off as one of the better. The example they give in the book is the Gray Mouser um, from Fard and the Gray Mouser. God, I cannot say that first name. I apologize. I just butchered the shit out of that. Um, but it's very much a stealth based class. You want to get in a position around your opponents, not just attack your opponents. Sorcerers are the most common and generally magic wielding profession. Um, They don't really do combat hand to hand very well, uh, but they have better spell list than Elementalist and more power than the Mystic. Um, you're talking your typical Gandalf or Merlin type character here. That's what a sorcerer is. Uh, a mystic has magic. It comes from his own mastery of his own mind rather than external sources. They're pretty decent all around. They're not as powerful as elementalists or sorcerers, but they're capable in combat with a few special abilities that kind of boost their combat abilities and stuff. So that's where you're going to get with a mystic. Um, kind of think of like a chi user in a kung fu movie. That's what you think of when you think of mystic. Um, Key user, not chi. Key user. Elementalists are special positions. They use power of natural elements to achieve their aims. So you choose one of the five elements. They don't use conventional weapons all that much, but you're playing more of like a shaman or druid if you play an elementalist. So you're talking very classic, tropey druids. Uh, and then warlocks are the best way I would honestly say to describe warlocks is they're a lot like spell blades or anything like that. They fight well in combat, or pretty efficiently in combat, but they can also wear armor and use spells, and that makes them very versatile. They get less benefits from magic because they don't get as much access to it as other master casting classes, but they offset that by mastering one type of weapon, and that weapon, if they holding that weapon at high rank, can become very dangerous to other people. So those are the seven classes, guys. And right now, I'm going to tell you this video might go just a little longer than we want it to. So I apologize if you guys don't have attention span for this kind of stuff. Step three, we're going to start getting derived statistics here. So um, going down the character sheet, if my mouse will cooperate. Sorry, my mouse likes to turn off because it's a wireless mouse and it's not got a battery. It's a chargeable mouse, so it likes to just turn off to save power. So I apologize. Okay, so health points, as you can see, there's not a wide variety. You don't get a lot of health points in this game. Health points are very much small. Um, Knights are going to start with the second most hit points. They start with a d6 plus 7. So you're going to start with anywhere between 8 and 13 hit points. Um, so 8 and 14, I'm sorry. Or no, all right, 8 and 13. Man, yeesh, can't do math here. 8 and 13 hit points. Barbarian starts with a d6 plus 9. So again, you're going to start with somewhere between 10 and 19 health point, or 10 and 15 hit points. Ugh. And Elemental Sorcerer and Sorcerers start with d6 plus 4. And Assassins start with d6 plus 5. Mystics and Warlocks as well. So they will increase a little bit as you level. Okay, so that's the really simple part of this. Then you're going to get into these little things. These are all the derived statistics here in the middle: attack, defense, evasion, stealth, perception, attack, magic, defense. So this is all part of the next couple of steps. They're called the combat factors and dodging factors. So and stealth perception. So those are all their different factors here. So everybody's going to start with a baseline stat line for different classes. Um, each class starts with attack scores based on class, and then will be actually modified by your statistics. So just as an example, Knights start with an attack score of 13 and a defense score of 7. But if you have a very high strength, for example, you can get +1 attack. So if you have a 13, 14, or 15 strength, you get +1 attack, which would mean your attack score goes up to a 14. Pretty simplistic. Not going to go through the whole table telling you all the basic start attack scores and all that because that just gets repetitive. But your combat scores will be based on your profession, and profession actually plays a lot into all this. The same thing is true for magical attack and defense. So if you're playing an assassin, knight, or barbarian, you start with a 3 magical defense, 4 for mystics and warlocks, and 5 for elementalists and sorcerers. And only the 4 magical classes get a magical attack score, which you can see right down here: magical attack, magical defense. And the basic magical attack score is 15 in the case of elementalists and sorcerers, 14 in the case of mystics, and 12 in the case of warlocks. And then again, they're modified by your intelligence and/or psychic talent, just like how reflexes and strength can affect your attack and defense. So, so there you go. Like I said, this game is not. It seems a lot more complicated than it is. It's really not all that complicated. Finally, you get your evasion. Um, Evasion is a very interesting thing. You know, you can dodge out of the way. Evasion follows its own rules. We'll get into that when we get into the actual rules of the game. But you start with 3 if you're an elementalist, mystic, sorcerer, warlock. Basically, you're a caster. You start with 3, 4 for a knight, 5 for an assassin or barbarian. Basically, representing the fact that warlocks and all that are not very well combat trained. They're not trained in their reflexes. They're not going to get out of the way very easily. Knights are typically heavily armored, so they're a little slower, whereas barbarians and assassins a little bit more competent. So, and then you have your stealth and perceptions. Exactly what they sound like, guys. Stealth and perception is exactly what it sounds like. Your ability to sneak around, hide from people, and your ability to perceive people trying to do such. Not difficult to understand. Again, based off your class, it's going to be based off your profession. Your professions are they're very simplistic to understand that. So, knights, barbarians, elemental, sorcerers, warlocks get 13 perception of 5, stealth of 13, perception of 5. Um, Mystics get stealth 14, perception of 6. Assassins get stealth score of 18, perception score of 8. Because that's really what they do. Again, so a very high score in reflexes affects stealth, and psychic talent can affect perception. So there you go. And then, so, and then you get your initial equipment for your character, again, based on your class. So just as an example, knights get equipped with plate armor, shield, dagger, lantern, flint and tinder, backpack, 25 florians, sword, or morning star. And that's what you start with. And anything you can buy with 25 florians, which is the standard currency in this game, you can buy, which cover the equipment chapter, of course. You always start at first rank, unless for some reason somebody wants to start higher than that, but you should be starting at first rank. When you significantly get enough experience points, you go up in rank. Going up in rank does have some benefits. Let me switch that page real quick. 30. Because there is a couple of very specific benefits that are important to know about increasing your ranks. Okay. So when you hit a new rank, you get a whole list, and it's in the book in here. I'm not going to go through all of it, but you get a whole list of benefits. So just an example, a knight gets +1 to attack and defense each time he increases in rank. He gets 1 health point each time. He gets 1 magical defense each time. He gains 1 point in evasion upon reaching 5th rank, and then again at 9th. Yada yada yada. It's actually very detailed. It's in the book. I'm not gonna go through and read all of it to you because again, that's just kind of getting too thick into the weeds. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to choose your background. Your background, like I said, it does a lot for you because that is what's going to be the core of your character, really. You get social classes, and there's all kinds of interesting things you do. You can determine it for yourself, of course, with DM's permission. It's also a lot more fun from my perspective. And a lot of my players' perspectives, I've run through this to randomly roll their background class, because you can be from anything from a charcoal burner to nobility, um, literally anything you want. Um, you could be a cataphract. You can be a freeman. You can be a professional tradesman. And once you get into that, um, you get into different craftsman backgrounds, and there are full tables for all of this, guys. It's very, very interesting. And then it actually tells you how likely you are to be proficient in languages, uh, chances of knowing ancient languages. There's full subsystems for your background in this game. So again, try not to get too deep into the weeds. Um, so what happens in this game? One of the couple things that I'm going to go over real quick because they're important to. If you look at the sheet, if you get a chance to look at the sheet, one of them is here in the middle, the armor factor and all of that. Um, is armor factor is a score that's going to be used in combat that you have to bypass an armor factor in order to do damage. And I'll explain that when I do the video of combat because that's an important part of super important part of combat. Based on your armor type. Shields in this game are very interesting in that if you're carrying a shield and you get hit, you roll a d6 on a roll of 6, you deflect the blow. So shields are very important in this game. They work a little different in most games. But last little housekeeping thing, and then we'll be done talking about character creation for this game because it's, like I said, it's not very complicated. I really encourage you to check out the book if you want more information about the details. But encumbrance in this game is not, it's not as tight as some games. So most characters can carry about 10 items roughly in the equivalent size to a weapon. So the things they consider size of weapon. Weapons, quiver of arrows, case of quarrels, scrolls, bottles, lantern torches, about 150 coins. Um, and so small items can't count, like rings don't. Armor does not count. It's already accounted for in the rules if you're not trained with armor and stuff, so that's already there. If you have a low strength, 3, 4, or 5, you can only carry 6 items. If you have a 6 to 8, you can only carry 8. And so on, so on. So it gets, the more strength you have, the more you can carry, capping off with 14 items. And it's, like I said, fairly simple, guys. That is the basics of character creation for Dragon Warriors. It's nothing to it that's too complicated. It's not too detailed. It is not one of those games that is going to take you 2 hours to create a character for. It is not going to, there's not 50 million options. A lot of the abilities for the classes, and I will do videos in the classes, um, probably going to do them by type instead of individually. But the classes pretty much have set abilities at set levels. You do get some options later as you level certain classes, and certain classes like Elementalist and stuff like that do get level 1 choices like spells and things like that. But your choices are much more limited in this game at first rank than it would be at, say, Pathfinder or D&D for various reasons. Like I said, it's a very old school feel. Very much the way that Fighting Man worked in OD&D is the way a knight works. He comes with a stack of abilities that he has, and that's his abilities for most of the game. And that's just, you don't get to choose a lot otherwise. I think their first choice for ability didn't come to like rank 8. So they're pretty detailed. The book itself handles character creation flow really easily. There is a quick reference sheet for everything for every class. So when you're going through, really all you need to do is pull up that quick reference sheet, reference the profession you're taking, and run with it. And then reference the adjustment table based on your stats. And you're golden. And then you need to reference the equipment chapter. There's going to be about 4 chapters you should reference when you go to this book for character creation. You should be referencing the character creation chapter, the chapter regarding your class or your profession, whatever you want to call it, the chapter on backgrounds, and you should be also referencing the chapter on equipment. Other than that, guys, you really don't need to reference a whole lot more. You will reference a spell chapter if you're playing a spellcaster, of course, but those are the 4 that everyone will use. So, anyways, guys, as always, we welcome thoughts, comments, questions, concerns. If you want to know more about this game, like I said, I'm going to keep doing the deep dive because I really love Dragon Warriors. I think it's a game that deserves more love than it gets, and it just has not been getting that love and outside the Anglosphere, and it really deserves it. It really does. I think if you're an OSR player and you're looking for something a little different, this game will scratch your itch. It really will. So all that being said, guys, we look forward to seeing you guys around the game table and hope you guys keep having fun.